What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, or as well as you can do. There is so much to get into on a Sunday. And guess what? Manchester United, they managed to do it. Even when there's no football, they still managed to get you right there, right where it hurts, right in the heart, right in your feelings. So we're going to get straight into it. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Of course, there's been a lot going on. I don't know if you've heard in the last 24 hours, some stuff's come out. Some stuff has happened. And obviously, it kicked off last night with Fabrizio Romano dropping an exclusive saying that Sheikh Jassim had put in a final bid. It had been rejected. Because it had been rejected, he had withdrawn from the takeover process. It then led to the revelation that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, his bid for 25% of Manchester United is set to be ratified this coming week at a boardroom meeting. That was the state of play last night. And then today we found out a bit more detail surrounding the finer details of Ineos's bid to secure 25% and what that will actually entail. So before we get into everyone in the panel, let's get a bit of a state of play that's going on. First of all, actually, I should be manners.
I feel like your mic is glitching, or is it me that is? Am I hearing that? Is it the only one that's hearing like a? Yeah. No,
is it glitching?
Okay, cool.
Nah, it's clean to me, KG.
I tell you what, it's not like KG to derail my intro. I was doing well there. You know what I mean?
Sorry.
Stealing your glory.
Yeah, it is. But big up to the panel, big up to KG, big up to Good Vibes John, big up to Marcel, big up to Kenny, big up to Mina as well. Right, state of play, because there is a lot to get into, and I want to get everyone involved in this. So, the Telegraph have reported that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos, will take control of footballing operations in an attempt to remove the Glazers from the firing line in his proposed 25% Manchester United co-ownership deal. Under the terms close to being agreed by key parties, the Glazers would remain at Manchester United, but take back seats amid efforts to calm the mood among fans. A clause handing Sir Jim Ratcliffe control of sporting matters also goes some way to explaining why the Ineos owner is willing to pay an estimated 1.35 billion, with a B, billion pounds, a significant premium on market valuations for just a quarter stake of the club. Again, this deal looks like it's very close to being done at this point. Several people now, Mike Keegan as well, saying that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's group are set to take control of footballing operations at Manchester United should this 25% acquisition be ratified this coming week. It must be stressed that Ineos are saying that it's a foot in the door and it's the first step in what is being viewed as a staged buyout of Manchester United as well. There are lots of questions to be asked and answered, which we'll get into throughout the show, and a lot of reaction on social media. KG, I'll come to you first and we'll go around the whole panel. If you can hear me, obviously.
I can hear you.
What are your thoughts on just the last 24 hours in general? What are your thoughts on the Qatari withdrawal? What are your thoughts on... obviously, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the 25%. And what are your thoughts also on him possibly having, a really control over footballing operations at the club?
You know what? It's a lot to break into, because so much has happened in this short space of time. Like, we've been waiting for news forever. They were silent with the whole Man United fan base this whole way. And it feels like, if I'm being honest, it feels like we've been played. It feels like we've been played like a wonderful hand by the Glazers. It now just feels like these guys just had no intentions. They just don't care about the club. That's all you get from this. Like, the debt's still there. There's it's just a violation, really. We want to be one of the best clubs in the world. We want to be strong in this market, and all you can see is greed. It was their moment to step away. It was their moment to just, like, we could move forward. I feel like KSI. Literally, like, I just want to kick. Yeah. I want to kick my own production. But I'm just gutted. If I'm being honest, I'm gutted, because I was thinking about, what stadium would have. I always thought it would go to Qatar. I always thought that at the end of the day, they'll never be able to turn down, I don't know, 6 billion. And the Glazers surprise us again. And they do it again. So, yeah, just I'm upset with things. I haven't even got my head around the Jim Ratcliffe thing, what that even looks like. I'm just more like, we have to remember what's happened right now. These guys, we wanted to move forward, and they sport the opportunity.
Mina, I'll come to you next. A bit like the question to KG. What have you made of, again, the developments last 24 hours? Sheikh Jassim withdrawing. Ineos looking like they've won this race, but what have they really won at the end of it? 25% plus I guess, control over footballing matters, whatever that looks like. What are your thoughts on all of it?
I remember when this whole process started, I remember saying I have a feeling the Glazers weren't going to sell, because to me it sounded too good to be true. Why would the Glazers want to give up something to essentially that's a money-making machine for them? Now, for Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos to now come in 25%, just to take the Glazers out of the commercial firing line, because essentially, if it's not the Glazers leaving, then it's not something I can get behind. That's the only way I can put it. If it's not the Glazers leaving, I cannot get behind it. Number one. Number two, I don't think there's enough transparency surrounding this deal to kind of be on the side of it. I don't know. We don't know as fans, but this 1.3 billion, who's paying it? Is it cash? Is it equity? Is it loans? If it's a loan, who's it being allocated to? Is it being allocated to Ineos as the 25% owner of the club? Or is it getting allocated to Manchester United on top of that as a result? Who's paying the interest? Is it coming out of the club? Is it coming out of Ineos's pocket? Is it coming out of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's pocket? There's so many questions we don't know. I saw a report earlier, like about an hour ago. I don't know if it was the Times. I think it was the Times reporting it, saying that their plan is to focus on the footballing issue at large, which is basically transfers and having the right people in the right places, rather than focusing on, fixing the stadium, building a new stadium perhaps. But the one thing that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way with their offer or their bid or whatever you want to call it is that it was solely focused on the first team. Now, I know a lot of people resonated with Sheikh Jassim because, the fact that he was offering to wipe the debt, but outside of, all of the financial aspect of stuff, they were pretty quite rigid in terms of, we want to develop the first team, we want to develop the academy, we want to invest in the women's team. But right now it's very much, we're going to focus on the recruitment and the transfers and that kind of stuff. We ain't going to rebuild a stadium. I think there's so much that is just up in the air that is very difficult for me to kind of get behind it. And like I said, as long as the Glazers are still there, then Sir Jim Ratcliffe is essentially an accomplice in all of this now, because he's essentially allowed the Glazers, he's given the Glazers a lifeline where he's let them still probably profit off Manchester United in the future, and just threw 1.3 billion at them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think and something we're going to get into as we go on is there are so many questions, and I think a lot of them are just not even necessarily out of anger, just out of like, I was a report, I think it was The Athletic said that actually it's really unprecedented to have 25% of an organization and have as much influence as they could possibly have over one part of it, i.e. the footballing side of things. It's somewhat unprecedented, but then again, to pay the amount that they've paid for only a quarter of the football club is also somewhat unprecedented too. John, now, a couple of weeks ago after we lost, I can't remember who it was against, she said there's no good vibes here. I'm not sure if there are going to be any good vibes here today. What have you made of the last 24 hours?
I've been getting asked by people, hey, we need some good vibes. Can you bring some good vibes? This has been the hardest ever since I've started talking about Manchester United, since David Moyes days. These days have been probably one of the hardest. And they're like, oh, come on, say something positive. I can't. It's so hard. It is one of the toughest moments ever. And to be quite honest with you, as much as I've been optimistic and positive about anything with respect to Manchester United affairs, when the Glazers first announced this back in November last year, I actually said I couldn't give a rat's ass about this whole ownership situation because, like Mina said, I just don't see the Glazer family moving to sell a club that is so profitable, to sell a club that has so much market value for them. To sell a club, I just felt like it was just one of those things. At the end of the day, it was a billionaire's tug of war, and it was all about the bottom line, who gets to make an extra billion, who gets to sell an extra billion, unless it was astronomically ridiculous. And by the way, Sheikh Jassim's proposal was already a fantastic, lucrative offer to deal with, clearing the debt, 8 billion in total. That is insane money. And for them to turn that down, it just goes to show they never were really interested in selling the club in the first place. And this whole story about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, don't get me wrong, if there's maybe a shred of positivity I can think about, is that it could potentially be in line for the first step in terms of the changing of the guard. Nobody knows. Honestly, nobody on this God's green earth knows. But at the end of the day, it's just bad news all around, and it's really hard to come up with something positive, and it's depressing.
KG, you drinking wine?
Told the missus, man, this is the only way we're gonna do with fun today. The cheeky wine, bro. I said, babes, give me some of that. That's you know how I'm eating, bro. That's not even my choice of drink, but bro, we're finished.
One of those ones where they're pouring out and you go, Get 2 glasses out. Get two out. Right. One for me as well. Marcel, I'll go to you next because it's a strange thing with Marcel. We always say he shares opinions that sometimes people don't like to hear, but there's a strange thing, they end up coming true. And this might be a similar thing with Marcel, because I remember it was on this very show, I believe it was, saying that we may have to, whether we like it or not, we may have to accept a Sir Jim Ratcliffe minority investment or Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid if it means it's the beginning of a process to get out the Glazers. Now, I don't think, Marcel, you probably sit here today feeling gratified about that at all, because again, there was a complete wiping of the table and now a sort of a messier table with lots of questions. How are you feeling after seeing everything?
I don't think it's the end of the world. Like I was saying before, I've always believed that there's a way for Ten Hag to survive under the Glazeronomics. I just feel like now there's a never barrier. Like Mina's almost described, for 25% of the club, they've got like a whole new barrier in front of them in terms of, the playing style and footballing decisions. What is this 1.3 or 1.7 billion actually going to do? What is it actually going to go towards? There's so many questions that I have asked in terms of the actual investment, let alone what Mina's outlaying, which is where that funding is actually coming from, because that's going to be another issue. I think the debt, has slowly risen from the original 500 to 600 million to like 1 billion.
In the chat, sorry, just to answer you, in the chat, they're saying that the loan is coming from JP Morgan. I just seen them saying back and forth in the free seat, so.
Yeah, and to hear that, KG, it's really, really upsetting, and for me, the only positive that I can, because I like to look for positives. I know everyone knows that I like to look for positives, and for me, it's got to be the fact that hopefully this is coming towards the end of the Glazeronomics and the Glazers. I don't know when that happens though. So I feel like we're just being dragged along. We're literally the Glazers' credit card right now, and Sir Jim has managed to pay off. I don't know what. I don't know if he's paid off some of the debt with what he's paid off their debt, but what is it going to go to?
That 1.3 billion isn't paying the debt. It's just to acquire 25% of their rights.
Yeah,
that's it. That money's going in the Glazers' pocket.
It's literally just what about the shareholders? Glazer shares and minority shares. That was the holdup previously, is that Ineos just wanted the Glazer shares, and the minority shareholders say, well, that makes us basically, we're not involved in this takeover process. And as shareholders, we think we should be involved in this process. So he pivoted and said, okay, I'll include you. So to Mina's point, that 1.34 billion, whatever it is going to acquiring some of the Glazer shares and some of the minority shareholder shares as well. But whether it goes into anything else related to United, it probably not.
So then at some stage, then guys, we're going to hopefully see some sort of investment from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And then what about his return on investment? He just forked out all this money. He's going to want some sort of return down the line as well. So I do feel like we're in a real dire situation. Obviously, you can see greed has been the main driving factor of this whole situation. So, Sheikh Jassim wanted to buy the whole club. The whole club would have been purchased. The whole area would have been renovated. The women's team. We lost key footballers last season because of situations that have trickled right from the very top. So it is hurtful to me, but I don't think it's the end of the world, guys. I think even the fact that they've held on to the manager and supported the manager, and they've got this situation at the top in terms of no funds and all these things. This could bode well that we have to stick by Ten Hag. We have to now, because we know that he's trying to get us into a new direction as a club. So this could be a positive in that kind of weird way where they can't get rid of managers, left and right. They can't get rid of players left and right. They have to stick with their quality. We've been able to rebuild squads in the past, if you go all the way back to Sir Matt Busby, they've rebuilt sides with young players. We've got Garnacho, we've got Ahmad, we've got Hoyland, we've got young players, Malacia, we've got young players here, Hannibal. There's footballers there that that Kobe. So I'm not too negative right now. We need to get talent in, but I don't know, man. I'm annoyed, but I'm not fully worried right now. I think this could still be a good situation from this, in my opinion.
We'll circle back to it. We'll go to Kenny first, though. Kenny, obviously.
Oh, Marcel.
Yeah, go on, Kenny.
What are you drinking? What are you drinking, Marcel? What are you drinking?
Nothing, Kenny.
You know what I mean?
Nothing.
I'll go round. Right.
Kenny, Owen said it. Owen said it. It always comes back round. It always comes back round.
All right. I'll go round the house and come back to you. Right. Last November, the club was never put up for sale. The fans believed it was up for sale. It wasn't. The statement from the Glazers, and there's only ever been one statement. The Glazers are looking at strategic options, including the possibility of a sale. That was what they said. They never said the club was up for sale. We as fans, and all the fan base believed that they were selling the club. They had no intention of selling our football club. The reason is simple. For 18 years, they have butchered our finances. They've drawn dividends. They've put us in more and more debt. Last year, they haven't released the figures yet because of the way that they've not been able to. But last year's figures will show income levels at £650 million for Manchester United. That's the highest grossing figures that they've published in the history of Manchester United. So that is when your team isn't winning anything. You're not in the Champions League last year, but you are grossing record figures. Now, when you think about it from a business perspective, forget the football perspective. If you were grossing record figures year on year, why would you need to sell? Why would you need to sell? Because you're not in debt. You're only in the debt if you can't afford to fund it. Your mortgage on your house is not a debt because most people can afford to fund it. And that's the way they look at it. It's not debt because it's being funded out of our income. And year on year, our income is being grown. Now, I'm not blaming the Glazers. The problem with this is Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, at the outset, wanted to buy 100%. Right? Sheikh Jassim wanted to buy 100%. Jim Ratcliffe couldn't afford it. So we decided he wanted to put 50%. If Jim Ratcliffe had withdrawn at the time because he didn't want a full purchase, we would now be owned by Qatar. We would. And I believe that. So Jim, all he's done from 100%, 50%, 25%, he has wanted to get his finger in the Manchester United pie. He couldn't get in the Chelsea pie. He couldn't get in the Barcelona pie. And he's failed in the Nice pie. Right? And all he's going to do, don't be surprised, don't be shocked if you don't hear anything about it anymore. Because it's a small 25% shareholder in a football club. That's all it is. It's nothing else. So he's not going to run out at the next home game at Old Trafford and be the saviour of Manchester United fans. That ain't going to happen. And there are millions and millions of questions that we should be asking of that individual. And the main one is, why the hell have you sat around? Because all you've done, you've kept the Glazers. You've kept nobody else. Nobody else. If they'd have come with a $6 billion bid and there was nothing else on the table, absolutely nothing else, he looked at the Elliott Group, right? They looked at the Elliott Group and they looked at Jim. And they was looking at strategic options. And what they wanted someone to bail them out. Now, bail them out. And what they do mean by bail them out is they've now given him or given them £1.25 billion or whatever, right? There's nothing there about what's going to happen for our football club. No disrespect to what Marcel's just said about we can do this, we can do that. What can we do it with? Weghorst, Amrabat? No, I'm being serious. What have we seen for the last 2, 3, 4 windows? Have you seen we were all sat here last year. Well, we'll have Harry. No, we don't want Harry Kane. We'll have Osimhen. Well, go on then, we'll have Harry Kane. You're getting nothing. And all this about him being ahead of over football matters. What the Glazer said is, look, we're taking a bit of stick here. Let him take a bit of stick. Let him take the stick. And that's what's the next one. So all we're going to do as a fan base, what's going to be, if anything to put it, he's doing this, he wants to bring Paul Mitchell in, he wants to do that or whatever. The big telling point for this is the January transfer window, right? The January transfer window. If they are serious about continuing investment to make our football club better, then the next transfer window is absolutely imperative. If they come out and Sir Jim says, right, Ineos Group are absorbing the debt, this is what we're going to do. We want to support Ten Hag. We're going to go for these 3 players. We spend 500-600 million in January or whatever. Say, hey, this guy's serious. Is he going to do that? I don't know. But we fell for it, hook, line and sinker. The statement was, We are looking at strategic options, possibly the sale. We fell for it, hook, line and sinker, and we've been taken for a ride. And sadly, Sir Jim, we could all be singing to Jim out at the next one, let alone Glazers out at the next home game, because I don't know anyone. I don't know any fan base. I've checked on social media. I've checked online in fan groups. Nobody's happy with this. Yeah, we can be a little bit positive and fair play to Marcel or whatever, every cloud and all that. But I'm afraid from where I'm sitting and from what I've seen and what I've known for the past 18 years and what I've seen this season at Old Trafford when they're selling hospitality, they're kicking, the fans that go to the home games are being kicked out the season ticket seats, and there's more hospitality seats going in. We saw 3,000 Galatasaray fans in with the home crowd last week. Why? Because they're selling hospitality to them. They don't give a monkeys about the fans, whether it be the home fans or those abroad or whatever. They ain't bothered, lad. It's about Glazeronomics. It's about money. Done.
Let's get to the super chats, then we'll circle back because lots of people want to get involved here. CeeLo has said this may just be a depressing stream. This was before it even started, by the way. Prediction, very good. Very good prediction. Spot on. Benji says, feel like Will Smith today, Man United is my Jada. I get that reference, by the way. I understand that as well. Terrible. Tony Stark says Glazer's out here like 7 Gary. Told Justin 6 is not enough for me to hold. I need you to give me more. KG, do you care to explain the 7 Gary reference, or shall I move on?
I just leave it. We don't need to.
I'll move on. I'll move on as well. That's fine. Lil Yo-Yo says, KG, you were right. The board meeting is Thursday.
I didn't want to I'd rather
he says. He says a dreaming Saudi pulled out, then bought Newcastle. Although it was a slightly different situation as well, wasn't it? Amanor has been a member for 9 months. Says, I learned over the last 24 hours that the Glazers are cunning rats, and another Ratcliffe has joined them. Will Sir Jim Ratcliffe spend on the club? Forever Palestine as well. Steve says, even clubs like Villa and Brighton moving upwards as a club, while we are regressing. We'll be a genuine mid-table club very soon, I fear. Give it to Mike. He's spoken about what KG was saying about the JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs are backing the deal of loans and bonds. This is just more debt. Rail has been a member for 4 months, says something about the story isn't right. Reuters, as of an hour ago, state that Jassim still wants a deal but refuses to up his bid. But then again, that was the same Reuters that said that they were negotiating exclusivity back in, June? I think it was. They said something like that. Chimera says about the Europa League song. That's coming back regardless, by the way. That Europa League song, I think, is going to be coming back, unfortunately, this season as well. For me, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is nothing more than a protective layer for the Glazers, someone else to take the flak, as fans aren't turning on managers anymore. Amanor says, Warsaw, you're smoking some funky stuff. Please go to bed. Koala says, KG, that was quick already in the Ipswich merch as well.
It's not Ipswich.
Come on,
man. Be better than that.
Richard said, it's over, guys. The days of us winning the big prizes are done. I'm glad I was old enough when we were last successful. I feel sorry for the younger fans. They're not going to see good times again. But for me, when it comes to that as well, Richard, for me, it's not even necessarily about being successful, because I think, speaking for myself as a younger fan, I would like to consider, certainly I grew up with Manchester United winning all the time. And I realized, talking to fans that watched United in the 70s and 80s, that's not a given. Nobody's got a divine right to win. It's more about the ambition to try and win, isn't it? And also not have owners that are constantly taking things out of the club and don't care about, even having heart or having soul. It's not necessarily for me about winning. Some people it is, but it's about that attempt to try and win, to try and care as well. What else we got here? Janice says, nothing's the end of the world, Marcel, only end of United. Please, Tao, how do you think United will be competing with Liverpool, Man City, Newcastle, or even Tottenham? Or how will we be signing top players? And David T says, I keep hearing we survive worse, but United, I know throughout history, had a winning culture against the odds. Survival is for Forest/Fulham. This is kind of an open question I have to everyone, because Mina kind of touched on it earlier. There are so many questions now about this Sir Jim Ratcliffe part of this. Where's the money coming from? If he's in charge of sporting matters, you're in charge of sporting matters, but you're not in charge of the club. So at any point, the Glazers could overrule you by their voting majority as well. What other questions do any of you have that you would like to see answered? Let's say this is confirmed Thursday, ratified.
I need it.
What would you like to see him say?
I need an interview with Jim Ratcliffe. And I need him to Radcliffe, right? I keep saying it wrong, and that's going to get awkward if he does become the owner.
Well, KG, you can't even say FIFA, so it's fine. It's fine.
I need to hear from this guy, and I need to know what his new manifesto is, not the fake one of Manchester back in Manchester. I need to hear
approach to leadership. Remember that?
Yeah. I need to hear exactly what his plans are for the club and what is even the long-term vision is as well. Again, Man United fans just need something to be excited and, look forward to and believe in, If it's going to take longer, well, let us know what it looks like. Are you going to buy out the Glazers? What is the day? Okay, you put in this investment. What does that mean for the first team? What does that mean for the stadium? What is it like? There's so many questions that Man United fans have now, and we need those answers. Now you've given them, now they said that you're head in charge of sporting matters. What does that mean? What does the sporting matters actually mean to you? There needs to be an extensive interview where you see, like when I think it was Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, when they grilled Ten Hag after them poor games in the beginning of the season, and they were asking him so many questions. I felt like, wait, what's going on? He's just arrived. I want that extensive grilling. Like, what's going on? How is this going to affect? Because no one's talking about him owning 2 clubs and stuff. Like, it's bad. Like, it's a mess. This thing is like, they've done us, really. But then he can change that. If this man, because he's paid a record price for 25% of Man United. We can't forget that. So the main thing that we can see in this is he wanted 100%. He didn't get 100%, but he really wants the club. So there's appetite there. What does the appetite mean? Is the appetite to do something positive for the club, or do you just want some because you can make money off it when he's rich already? I need to understand this man's intentions, and only an interview, an extensive one, will let us know what his plans are. It can't be none of this fluffy stuff. Tell us, when is the moment that you're going to execute for all of the club, or if you're going to staircase towards 50%, 60%. This is what we want to know as Man United fans.
What do you think he'd be allowed to say in an interview, though, as well? Once you're an official, stakeholder in the club, do you come out in your first interview and say, like it's been reported, it's with a view to buy the whole thing? Or do you really want to jeopardize the possibility of buying that remaining percentage from the people that own the majority at the moment? Like, how is that even going to work? Like, Mina, you mentioned earlier on.
I don't think he would have signed anything that would not give him some type of leverage or ground. As you say, with the 25% that he's apparently getting, no one's ever had this little bit of a minority share like this, and been in charge of sporting decisions. So that's something new. So there must be things written down that they can't go back on to say that he's in a stronger position. I would like to hope so. But again, this is Man United and we never do anything normal.
No, we definitely don't. Mina, I was going to go to you once again. You're talking about some of those questions. Like, do you echo what KG is saying there in terms of, do you want to see Jim Ratcliffe do an interview or Ineos release a statement to say what their intentions are? But what can they even really say in that as well, considering there are so many questions?
What if he does the interview? I don't want to see him doing an interview with Man United TV. I'm not gonna lie. I'd rather see him do a press conference in front of journalists and reporters. I feel like they would ask better questions. They would do a better grilling than, if you gave Gary Neville. Maybe Gary Neville would probably grow him on Sky, but within reason of what they're able to ask. Whereas in a press conference, you can ask whatever you want. Would that happen? No. But my biggest question, I would say, is not my concern, is the fact that they're only buying, Ineos and Sir Jim is only buying 25% as of right now, which means they get a seat at the table. But how valuable is that seat when it comes to decision making? Because essentially, the Glazers will still have the main say, even if and this is just a hypothetical, and I referenced this on my stream earlier today, that if next summer you come and say, Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes and says, we want to buy Kylian Mbappe for 200 million. We have agreed personal terms. PSG are happy to sell, blah, 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 blah. Who's making the final decision at the end? Just because they have the sporting rights, I need to know who's making the decisions in the end, because that could essentially mean that the Glazers are still making those decisions and they could simply override a lot of transfer requests that happen next summer. This is, again, just a hypothetical, but I know a lot of people are concerned about what does this mean for the first team, and what does this mean for the stadium? What does this mean for training facilities? What does this mean for the manager? What does this mean for the manager, essentially, if, you know, the sporting direction of the club under Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe's and their 25% takeover is essentially looking like they're looking to bring in a sporting director? They might be looking to replace Murto. Are they potentially looking at replacing Eric Ten Hag? These are questions that I think need to be addressed. And I think for me, the biggest question is the fact that he now has a seat at the table, but really and truly, how influential is that seat that he has? Does he have, you know, higher power when it comes to decision making over Avram and all these other Glazers? I'm not too sure, because really and truly, they're only buying 25%. And if there is, because I saw a report today on Sky saying that essentially it's a 25% minority takeover with the goal of it being a majority takeover. But when? Is that 20 years from now? He's 70 years old. If it's 20 years from now, you're telling me you're aiming for majority takeover, I hope you live long enough for that.
I hope we all do.
I hope we all do.
I don't got that many years left. I'm gonna be completely honest.
Yeah. But I mean,
Mina makes a fair point. Mina makes a very, very fair point. And I think from a United fan perspective, I think if there was some interview, some statement, and even if it was with the supporters trust or whatever, where you could see a series of questions where, as fans, we could put some trust back into the board. For example, you know, if he turns around and says, what's been agreed is that, you know, through the sporting director and through the chief executive, I'm going to be responsible. I have ultimate responsibility for signing off on transfers. I'm going to have signing off for this, for choosing new managers or whatever. Then at least you then have some clarity and vision in your own mind. Because currently you don't. Because we don't know who to blame, basically. Now, if the Glazers and if Sir Jim is big enough and strong enough to put his own head on the block, because that's what it'll mean, because if he's coming out and now saying that I'm responsible for all football matters, so it's he the person that we're going to all start pointing the finger at when things don't go right? Is that part of his deal? Does he want that? He may be strong enough, and he may think that because he's seen what we've seen over the past decade, with us wasting money on buying players and giving out contracts or whatever, he might say, I'll stop that. And that's great. If he can do that, that's great. But ultimately, no matter what happens, there has to be finances behind it. There has to be finances behind it. What you cannot do, and it's impossible to do, you cannot build a championship, Premier League winning squad with nothing. You cannot do it. It's been proven year on year. You might get lucky once, but you'll not consistently do it. If you look at all the clubs in the past, look at Man United in the past, we always had world record, we always had European record, British transfer fees, etc., etc. Liverpool were the same in the 70s, Man City are the same, or whatever. They invest heavily into their football team. And if Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes out and says, right, the Ineos brand or myself personally, we're going to fund that, and that gives me, because I'm prepared to fund that as an individual, then that gives me the right over the veto on all sporting matters, then I'll take my hat off to him. But if it doesn't, then all he's doing is just a smokescreen for the Glazers.
Just by the way, guys, just seeing some of the comments in the chat. Obviously, you know, tension's running quite high. I understand with, you know, all that kind of stuff, but let's keep it as civil as we possibly can, not be too insulting or whatever. I know mods are doing their the best job they possibly can, but if it is out of line, and obviously then you're going to get timed out, etc., because again, this is football we're talking about here. John, what questions would you want to see answered if he were to come out and publicly speak about anything like that? Are there any, is it, you know, are there certain questions that if he does answer and he answers well, you know, can people get behind that? Like, what would you like to hear from him if he indeed was to speak publicly?
Look, I like the idea of an interview where it's a bit more of an open face, where he has no room to escape. I don't like, you know, the whole MUTV situation. If he's at a press conference surrounded by a whole bunch of respected journalists, you know damn well that they're obviously going to be sort of in this position where if they ask something a little bit too hot for the table or too volatile, then of course, you know, they might get timed out. They might get banned by the mods. You know what I mean? So I'm a bit concerned about that kind of interview. I do want to see an interview because at the end of the day, from a public perspective, that's the best we're going to get. I'd rather see him like here, Like I'd rather see him with a 1080p camera. You know them wonky ones. I'd rather see him pull up on a pub. You know what I mean? With a 1080p camera, them way there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and just I want him to answer those kind of questions where he's going to be answering in front of people from Manchester or from fan base people like ourselves to be able to be given the 100%. But just going back to the whole conversation behind the idea of selling. Everybody that I speak to, I mean, from my side of things, especially here in New York, this is a hub of lots of finance and media and all of these conglomerates always talking. And the vibe here has always been that massive corporations have always been looking into investing more into football for the purpose of making sure that when, for example, the 2026 World Cup, when that comes around here in America, from an American investment perspective, they have their portfolio diversified. Now, for the Glazer family, who's purchased Manchester United on a debt, who now will be selling 25%, which will also be on a debt. From a financial perspective, it makes perfect sense for them to keep controls and keep all these shares because they're going to keep making money out of it. It makes no sense for them to sell it. So as much as I want to be positive and optimistic from a realistic standpoint, if we're looking at it from a timeline perspective of 2026, let's say, Glazer's thinking, all right, let's see what money we can rack up till 2026. Then we might have to wait until Sir Jim Ratcliffe, 25% share, and waiting until then before they sell. We have no idea. And that's the grim part about all of this. But at the end of the day, going back to coming full circle to answering your point about questions, I'd love to see him open forum in front of the fans, nowhere to escape, and really being asked the proper questions, not questions about, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, what can you do for Manchester United? And he's going to read off a script. I don't want to see that. I want to see somebody walking in there with an iPhone 7 like this, you know what I'm saying? With a microphone that they bought from like Temu or something, you know what I'm saying? Like I want to see raw, unfiltered. I don't want to see him sitting behind with huge studio lights. I don't want to see any of that crap because I'm tired of that shit. I'm tired of all of it.
No, I agree. I think the problem is sometimes, I remember it was after the Super League and the Glazer spoke at one of those sort of fan forums about something. And obviously then what they said never came to pass because, why would it, of them being more involved? But I do think, I think it's a good point and it's going to be interesting to see certainly what he says. Marcel, I'll go to you and then we'll get to the super chats. If he does come out, or maybe not even he in an interview, if he comes out or Ineos come out and say that they release more details of their 25%, and they say that we've got certain dates set of when we could possibly negotiate with the Glazers or buy more shares, or we aim to complete a takeover by this date, as John mentions, maybe 2026, something like that, coincide with the World Cup, whatever it may be. Can fans get behind that? Can fans get behind that at that point? If it's, the hope of eventually getting the Glazers out, or are we naive to think it could be that straightforward and the Glazers wouldn't give themselves an opportunity to stay?
I think, we can't trust the Glazers. I think it would be naive to completely believe it. It's at an inflated price that he's paid this 25%. He's paid at a massive fee. And if the Glazers think that they can get more out of him, then I don't see why they wouldn't, dig their heels in and stay. We got to just see Sir Jim Ratcliffe's actions. I think that's the most important thing now. What is he going to do in January? What is he going to do in the summer window? In terms of footballing direction, how does he impact that? And those are the kind of questions that we're going to want answers to. But he could still make good decisions. A lot of the problems previously was that we had the wrong people making these footballing decisions. They should have been gone, but now we've got somebody that, like KG said, has got a little bit of appetite. Let's see what he does with it. Again, we're getting taken for a ride. I'm not excusing that at all. We are definitely getting pulled along here and being played the fool. But within this situation, I feel that the club, anyway, in terms of on the football pitch, is going in the right direction. It's going in a football direction with the manager. And if we stick with this manager and allow him to grow within this adversity that right now is the ownership, he could still become successful. I genuinely believe that. It's going to be under, much difficult circumstances, and we're competing against much bigger teams and much bigger organizations. But, I still believe genuinely that this is the right manager. So if he's got a little bit, 25% better help than what he had before, I think it could help us. And that is something for me that I'm still holding on to right now. So we have to wait for Sir Jim Ratcliffe to enact what we're angry about right now. Do you get it? He has to go and utilize wherever the funding is coming from. He has to utilize it in the right way. And however he's going to make an impact in the seat and the table, he has to have time to be able to do that. I'm not going to sit here and dwell on the loss of Sheikh Jassim, you know, and that opportunity, because it's gone. You know, I've got to deal with the reality now, and I want to still be able to look at it in a positive way. That's what I can really say on that. I mean, let's wait on his actions.
We've got nearly 2,300 people watching, only 280 likes. So we're over halfway to 500, but I mean, it's a small percentage. Mina was shocked when I said that. It's stunned, actually visually stunned. So if you haven't already, click the like button and be sure to subscribe to bottom right-hand corner. I know it's not a lot to like at the moment. I always feel a bit strange going, you know, here's some bad news. Click the like button though as well. But it helps. It does help. So if you haven't already, click the like button. This is an interesting one from All Elite. It's been a member for 13 months. Appreciate 30 months of support. It says, what would you guys say if plans for an Old Trafford revamp and training facilities are now announced? Love you all, but love Owen a little bit more. I mean, I didn't bring that up just because he said that, by the way, as well. But what would you guys say if those things now did get announced? Because of course, that's one of the questions too. You know, they've bought in for 1.4, however much it is, billion. But the question then becomes, well, the reason you started this strategic alternatives exploration is because we needed money for the stadium, for the training ground, as Mina mentioned, for the academy, for the women's team, for the outside projects outside of Manchester United too. We still need that money. So is that also something we're looking at too? What happens if Ineos comes out and says, yeah, and we've already started work on doing a new stadium? Does that change anyone's opinion on it, or is that just another question?
The main thing is we want to win, you know, like all the Man United fans here, we don't give a crap. Like we're looking at everything now and we're deep in stuff and like, that's wrong, that's bad. Like, look at Anfield, innit? It's tiny, you know, like they just built a new stand recently, but they want to be competitive on the pitch. Now, do we want our women's team to be good? Yeah, like them to be better, but then it's not what I didn't start supporting Man United because of the women's team, if I'm being honest. Do I want the reserves team to be good? That would help because the players could come through. But I just want to win. I want titles.
Correct.
Who's going to give us the best chance to win? Now, if this guy comes in and we get the right type of players and we're moving correctly in the market, I'll be happy with that. Again, that's the main thing is set us up to be successful on the pitch. Right now, we can look at everything that's wrong with the club because we're just staring now. Well, it's like, well, there's a leak over there. That's wrong. This is thingy. We can't help but look because it's been 10 years of mediocrity. So we're looking at everything. I'm telling you right now, yeah, there could be some rust coming in. It could be raining a bit on fans. But if we're lifting up trophy after trophy, do you think I'm thinking about that? The leak that's landing on my shoulder when I'm in Old Trafford? Absolutely not. Let's lift another title. Add to the
Absolutely.
This is all
I'm
it is.
100%.
This is it. Like
100%. Yeah, I agree. 100% agree, young man. 100% agree. At the end of the day, we're Manchester United. We're about success on the football pitch. The success of a new stadium is for 75,000 of our billion fans, and that's it. We've got 53,000 season ticket holders. You ask them season ticket holders, do they want to come for your seat or do they want to be lifting trophies every year? They want to lift trophies every year. We're Manchester United. It's as simple as that. All what will happen with the new stadium is they will increase the hospitality because they're doing it now. They're taking out ordinary fan seats and putting more hospitality seats in, and that's all they will do. That's about building the franchise and the brand at a new stadium. It's not about success on the pitch. Simple as that. So the nicer the stadium, the better the stand, the more hospitality. That's about brand. That's about franchise. That's about bringing the income in. That's not about putting success on the football pitch. And I'm 100% in agree with KG here. I don't care. I'll sit there with an umbrella and let it pour all over my head. Right, if we're lifting that trophy at the end of the season, I don't care.
Kishan's been a member for 4 months, says, even if he has control of sporting matters, is that really a plus? Look at Nice, doesn't really scream elite decision-making, can't even compete with PSG. Well, this season they've started, well, they did beat PSG, didn't they, at the PSG stadium, but in the 4 years that they've owned them, I think The Athletic wrote a piece on it, that the Ultras went on strike at Nice, which says a lot. If the Ultras can't be bothered at that point, that says quite a lot, doesn't it? And what else have we got here? Jemai said, just deep that Ratcliffe is the face of Ineos. Red Baron says, John, will you remove the dark cloud about my head? Do you have that capability, John? I mean,
I'm out of the superpower juice. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to check back next week. I'm sorry.
Waiting for United to win the Prem says, I'm going on loan to Madrid and Casemiro is injured. Indeed, that is, he came off of a knock for Brazil the other day, didn't he, as well? What else we've got here? Daniel says, it's sad that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is presented like a best option. Proper United fan knows we need at a club only who can offer this was Sheikh Jassim. Club is going to fail in every aspect. Every mistake will count. Where else are we at as well? I think one more here. Joffrey says, his member for 13th says, my favorite KG phrase, this thingy. This is thingy. Big up everyone. Much love from Maryland. Shout out to John. First time seeing him. He's good vibes. There you go. Living up to the name as well. I actually got a couple more that I missed, I think, here. Theo says, it's been a member for 7 months, says, I honestly don't understand how anyone can spin this as a positive for that damn rat. It's a joke that we had a chance to get these gone, but said no.
Wait, hold on. Why did you skip that word?
What? Idiots? I can read.
Egypt. Let's
not even start, yeah? Because I know what it will sound like, okay? So I just go, you know what? Let me not even try and embarrass myself and humiliate myself. I know, I can read it. Yeah. Benji says, I don't give two turds on what Jim the Rat has to say. I read that one out, all right. And Daniel also says, the media wants Sir Jim Ratcliffe because they know he generates clicks and leaks. If they were proper United fans, they would know that Sheikh Jassim is best for the club. Mark my words, 10 years, Glazer's here, we will be moaning. Also, actually, I do want to talk about the sort of football side of things, considering that's seemingly what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is going to have control over. What do we think Erik ten Hag will make of all of this? Do you think he'll get any kind of resolution from this? Do you think... Because is it a resolution or what open forum? What do you think his reaction will be to any of it?
In terms of the playing side of things, I think Todibo is from Nice. He's a centre back from Nice. We need a centre back. I think Ten Hag just gets on with the job at hand. I genuinely think this man just gets on with the job at hand. Whatever situation is in his hand, he deals with it the best way that he can and tries not to complain as much as possible. Todibo is a centre back at Nice, and we need a centre back. So I think he's going to look at that as, can you make that happen? That should be a smoother process than what's been for the last 2 windows, especially the summer windows. And hopefully we can execute that in January. That's something that I'm looking at when I'm talking about, I got to look at the man's actions. You know, that's one of those actions. I'm not talking about Ten Hag, but I'm talking about Sir Jim and this 25%. I need to make sure that seat is operating in that kind of way. We're getting the talent.
If he goes to, sorry, Marcel. So if he goes to his other club and takes a centre back from there and brings it to Manchester United, you're going to rate him?
Not going to rate him. No, I think Ten Hag's going to be happy. You know, the question is, what is Ten Hag? How does Ten Hag look at this? And we need to acquire a certain level of talent, Mina. And I think Ten Hag's one of those guys that if there's an opportunity at hand, he's going to want to take it. So I wouldn't rate Sir Jim, but I'm looking at his actions, Mina. I'm looking at his actions. I'm thinking, can he make good decisions? Footballing ones, you know, we're talking about footballing decisions, like Owen's saying. That's a footballing decision. I think.
So it's a footballing decision. Man United need a centre back. So you will judge him good if he makes a footballing decision and goes to Nice and takes a player from there, a club that he owns, and brings it now to the team that he has a 25% ownership over. You will judge him on that action and think that that's a good thing. That's what I'm answering.
Yeah. Right now, I think acquiring that talent in that way, it's a fortunate thing that obviously he owns both clubs, and it so happens that he's moving a player from one club to another. But I think that's a good thing in the situation that we have right now. Being able to, that's somebody that we wanted in the summer. So yeah, I'll be very happy with that business decision if he has anything at hand to do with it.
What would your thoughts be if he thought that Harry Maguire was a great footballer and had a hard deal under Ten Hag? What would your feelings be if Sir Jim Ratcliffe came into the job, sat Ten Hag down and said, "Look, we've got a problem here. We've got Harry Maguire, he's playing for England. We've got Scott McTominay playing for Scotland. They can't get you're losing games. Can you not sort that out?" What would your thoughts be on that, Marcel? Because he could easily say that.
Yeah. I would really like it would be quite interesting to have his opinion on what happened all last season. I think as fans and Ten Hag constructing the team last season,
Interesting,
that's what
one
we
way
all
of putting it,
see.
Marcel.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, if he's to say something like that, it would be extremely interesting.
You don't know, do you?
Yeah,
You don't know, he
he'd
could
be
say it.
extremely ignorant to all of what's happened last season. I
Yeah, he
think when
could
you
say
just
it.
see Maguire play, even this season, you could see that he's just not fit for purpose in terms of what Ten Hag wants. As long as Sir Jim is backing this manager, for me, he's got my trust, or not my trust, but my early signs of support. I want him to do well at the club. He's part of whatever's happening within the club. I need him to make good decisions for us. So I'm going to be supporting that process. But for anyone calling still in for Maguire, you're looking at in terms of where we're trying to go in football, the evolution of our style of football, you're a dinosaur in that sense. If you're still asking yourself for players that can't play on the halfway line and that don't have enough sprint speed, if you're still asking for footballers that are not multifunctional in the midfield. Scott McTominay can only make fantastic runs into the box and add goals and maybe a bit of legs, but he's not multifunctional. He can't set tempo. He can't break lines. He's not fantastic box to box. He's not got more facets to his midfield game. If Sir Jim wants to keep footballers of that ilk, goodbye, but as long as he's supporting my manager and we're going right now on the football pitch, we have a manager that's taking us to the right direction. I need people above him supporting that notion and below him. It's that simple.
You do know he is Johnny Evans' uncle. Did you not know that?
I didn't know.
Hey, don't take the piss.
KG, what are your thoughts? You were looking very pensive throughout that whole thing. Actually, here's a good point. It's a good question to ask you, actually. We talk about football stuff, but is it difficult to talk about footballing control when it seems so much bigger than really what is happening on the pitch as well?
No, do you know what it is? Yeah, Man United honestly just need to. There's things that we do wrong, in regards to how we manage transfers, how we identify certain players and stuff like that, and even the way we chase players. Man United need to fix that part. People were saying that they like Ten Hag as a manager, but they need someone above him. Right now, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is saying that he's going to bring in his guy, like a Paul Mitchell. I think that's good for our manager. Our manager, if we can start to build our football inside, which who is it? Ragnick said, Man United don't care about football, it matters. If we can now have a focus on the football inside, that can be a positive thing. Now, I'm listening to, the funny thing is, I'm watching Marcel talk, yeah, and there's bare stuff like I disagree with, of course. Yeah, but then the one thing I rate about Marcel is he says what he thinks. Regardless of what anyone wants to say, because bare people getting upset with Marcel as if he's running the club. Not his fault. He can't do that. And then I think that the most annoying thing that I've seen today is people blaming Man United fans for the reason why the Glazers are still here. Bro, they've been complaining for years. They're still like, what do you want us to do to make the Glazers go? What could we do right now? We're pawns on the board right now, on the chessboard. We don't make any decisions. The guys, no matter what they said, they was willing. We thought, there's been marches, there's been sit-ins, there's been a bag of fans. Don't forget the people that left United in the beginning and they started up their own team. These guys don't give a crap. They just been here sitting waiting for their money. And even when you think, could it get any worse? They're like, it doesn't bother us. We're in America. The money's still going to come in. We made our 1.something billion. And when we finally get the money that's going to allow us to leave, because guess what? If they truly cared about the club, they would have said, hey, you know what? This is the best deal for Man United and their fans, and this is the right thing to do. But they don't care about the right thing to do. That's what we've learned in this time. So you can point the fingers at all these innocent guys, or you can see where it really matters. And it's them Glazers that don't care, that happen to buy the club in a strange way. Like there's a lot of things that there's nothing we can do about it. But
it's not even allowed anymore, by the way. It's banned the way they bought Manchester United as well.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
But then you can't do anything now. So it's like honestly, I really don't know what to say, because then there's the argument, well, stop buying merch. Well, they make money off season tickets and what do you call it? Are you going to stop coming to games? Absolutely not. We're not going to stop coming to games. Why? Because we're in love with the club. So it is right now, we're in a rock and a hard place, innit? And if Marcel wants to get excited and think, you know what, I have to move forward and think about what's next, then let him, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? If you want to be vexed where you are, be vexed. But then it's got to be that simple, bro, because it's misplaced rage at the moment. You want to be mad at someone saying, I want to move forward. Are you mad? That don't make no sense. Anyway.
You know, can I just say something, Owen?
Big love for that,
Sorry,
man.
bro. Sorry,
No,
bro.
for real.
I just think it's
Absolutely.
like, raw. What the hell, bro? Anyway.
When I was out in when we were here, when KG and Flex were out here in New York for the preseason tour, I was out there for the tailgate, and I met with 4 young college kids from, I believe they're from Calgary in Canada. And Calgary is a long ways. It's like 20-something hour drive. 4 fans, they drove down to New York because they're college kids. They don't got money to pay for flights and stuff like that. They drove down, crossed a fucking border with their car. That car was on its last legs. I swear, I was like, you drove with that? But they came all the way down to New York just to watch Manchester United play in a preseason game. These people love Manchester United no matter what. And unfortunately, the problem is at the end of the day, that's the fact. It's that there's just Manchester United are a massive club loved by fans everywhere. So it's not as easy as just saying, protest and all. It's not easy. Of course, it's progressive, and I love the idea of that, but it's not that easy. And I think Manchester United fans have been sort of sold on a lie and kind of put that on ourselves with respect to this whole sales thing. In November, one of the reasons why I didn't talk about the sale thing at all until March was because I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I literally said, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't even sell because it just doesn't make sense from a financial strategic standpoint from the Glazers' perspective. It's like we're in a predicament, and Manchester United fans feel very enraged and divided over all of it. And that's what I don't want to see. Why are we divided, getting angry at each other? You know what I mean? Like, we all have our differences in opinion and whatnot. And as much as you might disagree with Marcel, KG spot on. There's nothing. We shouldn't be divided, getting pissed off at each other and just throwing, angry words and all this crap. We're all in here because we all love Manchester United. At the end of the day, that's what matters.
Yeah.
Agreed. Absolutely. For me, like I said, I totally agree with what you guys are saying. I think it is a time to display unity, and I think it's also a time to be accepting. And I think this is kind of what's been wild about this whole thing is, this whole process. You would have thought that a process to remove the Glazers from the club would unite the fan base, but it kind of did the opposite because people started picking their favorites, throughout all of it too. And if you didn't lean to one side or the other, then you were massively in the wrong, or you're an idiot, or you didn't understand, or this, that, and the other. And for me, the way I look at it is that we've ended up in a situation where nothing's particularly changed all that much. The Glazers are still here. And again, this is why I say, I hope that Jim Ratcliffe comes out and Ineos say, we're going to get a staged buyout by this date. But we're really clutching at straws by this point as well. We thought, and they both did, Sheikh Jassim 100%, Jim Ratcliffe 69%. The goal was to get rid of the current owners, and that hasn't happened. And I still have my massive reservations and doubts. I know that people can say, well, Ineos being in control over the sporting matters, that's a positive from where we once were. But in reality, again, I still don't see how that can work when you've still got the current owners as they are, still in control of the football club and also in control of the business from a shareholding and voting power point of view. Because if at any point they decide they don't like what Ineos are doing or Jim Ratcliffe's doing, they could overpower him because it's their right. They still have the majority vote power. They still have the majority of the shares in the club. And it almost to me kind of feels like,
I think there's got to be some things
in writing,
where they're protected, because you put up 1 billion. I know it's not in the grand scheme, like it's not a lot, but you're significant enough to have a voice. Yeah.
But even that now, this idea of, okay, they couldn't afford what the Glazers wanted for the club, which was, as John mentioned earlier, $8 billion for it. They couldn't afford that. But they're saying in 2 or 3 years' time they could. And also, the suggestion was previously that the Glazers have said in 2 or 3 years' time, Manchester United could be worth 2 or 3 times as much with the way that Champions League going, Club World Cup, television rights are going, all that kind of stuff. So you're saying that actually in those years, you're going to actually have more money than you didn't have initially? Like all of that to me, I think there are just so many questions that are yet to be answered. And we're all waiting. We're all waiting as well. Where are we at when it comes to the super chats as well? Nomo says, it's been a member for 7 months, says, so it seems we are screwed for another decade. As per you guys, what are the next steps for Jim to bring us back to the glory days, as we have to accept this? Daniel says, I love listening to fans like you. It's not going to have channel beef or anything like that. Again, people can have their different opinions on it. Fortune, appreciate the contribution. Kishan says, are you being serious, Marcel? Todibo is what he will be judged on. The judgment comes from buying elite players from other clubs, not an unknown from his own club as well. And Don F has said KG has admitted defeat from the Glazers as well.
KG's ready next.
Because I don't know. I just find it funny, man. Like, honestly, on the day that Man United, like, really, like, if you want to talk about fan power and stuff, everybody has to be on the same page. And we can't even agree. We can't even agree on who should start in the midfield three. So
who's our best starting 11?
We can't even start. We can't even agree for our first starting 11, bro. Not even to mention if we should carry on playing the same goalkeeper. So it's a bit ridiculous, to be honest. And then I'm not gonna just gas it up and lie and say, what do you call it? If you told me right now, yeah, stop getting to watch Man United games, don't watch them on TV, do nothing, I'm not gonna do that. You lot know that. That's the toxicness of this relationship. That's why we come back every season hoping our team's gonna win. Why? Because we laugh the club. It is what it is, you know. So, yo, here we go. We hope these guys leave. You know, we can try and push them. When they say stand up if you hate the Glazers, we all stand up. We all do these things. I've seen bare planes fly over with Glazers out on the back of the plane. I've seen all of it, bro. Like,
with the banner
now,
that you have to squint at to see it.
I've seen the banners. I've seen all, like, you know what I'm saying?
Out. Finally, Don F says, I need a new sport. How is sumo wrestling? I don't think Sumo View is going to be coming anytime soon, but you never know. You never know what could happen in the future. Anyway, guys, a big up to everyone. Drop my pen. Big up to everyone that's joined us this evening. Big up to KG. Big up to Good Vibes, John, Marcel, Kenny, and Mina. KG, I hear a rumor you're going to be live on your channel shortly. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm going to give these people a chance to get some stuff off their chest. I'm probably going to turn off the monetization because I think it's going to be a bit of a spicy show. So come in and have your say.
Yeah, big up. And everyone's socials are in the description box below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. We'll be back live tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. for the morning view. More news coming. It's going to be a busy week. Have a good one. Try and have a good weekend. And we'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.